Hello everyone, welcome back to the second episode of our Family Matters series. It's your boy John Curtis back with you at the Fayetteville Church, and we're happy for all of you joining us. And again, if you are just joining our series, definitely make sure you go back and watch the first video, which can be linked right here. Oh wait, just kidding, we're not at 1,000 subscribers yet, which means you need to like this video and then subscribe to our YouTube channel so then we can link it right up there. No, but seriously, definitely like this video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss anything. So this episode of our Family Matters series is called Effective Household Communication. Have you ever had a miscommunication in your household? Or maybe you've witnessed a miscommunication in your household. Sometimes that could be more awkward. Yeah, I'm sure we've all wanted to run from miscommunication that we've had in our lives. But in this episode, we want to talk through how do we not run from miscommunication, but have communication that's effective, but then also spiritual. Miscommunication can come in all kinds of various forms. It could be not listening. Oh, wait, what? It could be a misunderstanding. Oh, honey, you wanted me to bathe the kids after dinner. Oh yeah, we had lasagna tonight. They're definitely gonna need a bath again. Sometimes it can be noise. No, honey, I'm trying to listen. I can't hear you. Whatever your barriers may be, it's important to work through them effectively so you can have better communication in your household. There's a famous quote by Nat Turner that says, "Good communication is the bridge between communication and clarity." And I love that word clarity because it really hits the goal of communication, that people can clearly understand us and that we can clearly understand others. There's a lot of scriptures that we can look at to help us with our communication. Let's look at a few. So in James chapter 1, verse 19, it says, "Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry." And I love that scripture, especially when thinking about communication. Is the first step that we should take via scripture is to listen. To listen to our spouse, to listen to our roommate, to listen to our mom or dad, and as parents to listen to our kids. That's the first step in effective communication. Then it says that we should be slow to speak and slow to become angry. There's a self-control there and that we need to have in our communication that will help it to be more healthy. Let's be honest, sometimes living out this scripture can be really tough and really challenging because we've all had things that people said to us and we wanted to react and we wanted to say something, and maybe we said something that we couldn't take back. And that's part of the wisdom of this scripture, is to guard our words and to take that step in listening and to think before we speak or react or anything like that. But think about this scripture and think about, if I applied just this scripture alone, how would that change the communication in my household? How would it change the dynamic between my spouse? How would it change the dynamic with my roommate? How would it change the dynamic that I have with my kids? And if you're younger, how would it change the dynamic that it has with your parents? So I think it's important to really look at this scripture and think, what is the scripture like for me? How am I living this out? Are there any changes that I need to make to fall in line more closely with this scripture? And what benefits would that have to my communication? The second scripture that I want to look at when talking about effective communication is in Philippians chapter 2, starting at verse 3. It says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interests of others." And I think this is an important point when thinking about communication, is it's considering what others need or what others think, and taking that step. And if we look at the scriptures and really apply this, that can really change our communication because we're getting the focus off of self and onto others. which is really important, especially with that quote from Nat Turner that talked about how communication is about bringing in clarity. So taking that step to understand others is important to bring clarity in our communication. And the next scripture I want to look at is in Titus chapter 3, verse 2, where it says, "You need to slander no one, to be peaceable and considerate, and always be gentle towards everyone." And this one can definitely be challenging because there are times where we do not want to be peaceable. We do not want to be considerate. We do not want to think about others. But if we're living out this scripture, we have to take that step and be considerate and bring in the peace in relationships. And you'd be surprised on how peace and having a calm atmosphere can affect the communication in your household. I don't know about you, but communication can be most difficult in my household. So when things are tense, when there's stress or there's anxiety, both me and my wife, and eventually my kids, like we're kind of all in this together, none of us communicate well when there is stress and when there is anxiety. So how we respond to that stress is to come with an attitude of peace. So now that we've looked at some scriptures that talk about communication, let's get into some practicals for our households to help our communication to be more effective. The first thought that I want to give you is how we communicate is equally as important as what we communicate. Because here's the thing, if we don't think about how we're communicating, the message that we're giving off may not be heard at all if we don't communicate in the right way. If we're brash with how we say something, or if our tone is aggressive, people are going to be off-put by how we're saying something so that they don't hear what we're saying. And effective communication starts with understanding the needs of the other person and who you're communicating to. And I cannot stress this important enough, because the communication needs of my wife are much different than the communication needs of my 2-year-old. The communication between my spouse is much different with the communication of one of my best friends who we're just kind of hanging out and having a good time with.
Do you think I put on a few pounds?
Oh, no, honey, you look beautiful.
Do I look fat?
Yo, dog, I got 5 fat friends and you are 4 of them. So we need to think through the communication needs with everyone in our household. What are the communication needs of your roommate? And maybe that varies depending on the temperament of the roommate that you have. Maybe you have 2 or 3 roommates. How you communicate with one may be totally different from how you communicate with another. How do you communicate with your spouse? Do you communicate with your spouse the same way that you communicate with your child? And what are their needs? Do you understand what their needs are? That's a really important practical step that you can take and that we all can take to help our communication to be more effective. In addition to thinking through what other people's needs are in their communication, it's also important to think through what are our needs in our communication. Maybe there's something that we need to ask for. And I think that that's important too, because again, the purpose is to bring about clarity in our communication. That doesn't mean it's just one person doing all of the work of communication. It's 2 people coming together. And an important aspect of that is us understanding our communication needs. Maybe you're a detail person. Maybe you need to know all the details and all of the plans, or maybe you're not a detail person and you don't need to know all the details and all of the plans. But whatever your needs are, it's important to think through them, but not just know them for yourself, but communicate them to those in your household. Another practical here is to be really careful and to manage your tone and how you're reading into tone. And I think this one can be challenging because again, as I mentioned earlier, how something is said can affect the presentation of what's communicated. And I think we've all had times where we heard something and it was said a certain way and it was very off-putting. Or maybe you're getting a text message and you get a text message from someone and you're not sure of what the tone is behind the message. See, if our tone is rude, it's going to take away from what we're saying because of how we're saying it. And sometimes what we're saying really is right or really is important. And sometimes there is truth that we're trying to give, but if we're not giving it in the right way, then we're not bringing about clarity with what we're trying to say. Another really good practical when it comes to effective communication is asking questions. And yes, I know that seems really simple, but man, you would be surprised by what happens with our communication by asking that extra question. That can bring about so much clarity that you wouldn't have otherwise if you don't ask. So I want to encourage all of you to think through your communication. What are the pain points? In what ways are your communication not effective with those in your household? And think through these scriptures and think through the practicals, and maybe there's something else that comes to your mind that the Spirit puts on your heart that you need to do and you need to change to take your communication to the next level so they can be more effective with those in your household. So I hope this video has been helpful for you and to your family, and that the time the next video comes out that your communication has grown tremendously and that you've seen a lot of benefits and fruit from working to help your communication to be more effective with those who are around you. And just as a reminder, don't forget to like this video, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page, and we will see you next time on our next video of Family Matters. Once again, this is John Chris signing out, and we'll see you next time.